Okay, welcome to another video. I am the Starman. Now I think I mentioned in a previous video that I was going to be having a look at apps for astronomy. Now I'm still in the garden here. We're actually into the third week of a lockdown. So I've been doing quite a few videos from the garden because obviously we can't really go out anywhere now to do any kind of Milky Way photography, which is really frustrating actually, because the weather's been really good lately as well. So anyway, in this video I'm going to be showing you an app that I use quite a lot. In fact, it's the app that I use the most to plan my Milky Way shots and all that sort of thing. And that app is Stellarium. You can actually get the app on the computer as well, so you can use it on the computer. It's available on the web, or you can download the app for your computer as well. It's a lot more deeper as well if you get the computer version as well. There's a lot more options on it. But I'm going to be having a look at the mobile phone version on my iPhone. So let's have a closer look at Stellarium. Right, okay, so here we have Stellarium on the screen now. And we can see this, I'm looking towards the west. I've got it pointing towards the west. And off camera up in the sky is Venus. And you can see Venus there. Venus is on the screen there. Just giving you an idea which way we're pointing. And we also have it marked down on the bottom there, west. And you can turn the cardinal points on and off by pressing this thing here. I have them on all the time anyway, so there you go. So this is Stellarium. Now I'm going to go through what all these things mean down here. And we'll also take a look at this menu here as well. In fact, I'll start with this one because first of all, you've got the date and time, which is fairly self-explanatory, and you can click this thing here, this green thing here, which sets it to your local time. It's already on the local time, but if it wasn't, you might want to look at something in the future or whatever. So to bring it back to now, you just click on that there. So that's fairly easy to do. So it's currently 21:41, and that's today's date. So the next one down from the date and time is landscape, and this is basically just the way it looks. What I have it set on is this thing up here, Gearings. I think it's a place in France. It's basically just a landscape really. You can have, if you click on ocean for instance, you can have an ocean as if you're on the ocean. So if you look now, if I bring up the horizon, you can see there there's no trees or buildings or anything on that one. So that's what landscape is. Next one down is location, very important. This is what you'll need to set up in your phone, location for where you are, so that you can just basically click the GPS up here and it'll take you straight to where you are. But if say you wanted to look, if you wanted to see what the sky was doing, say in let's say down in South America, you click that off there and you just point down here. It's a bit rough, you know, you might need to click it a few times. Let's say you wanted to, where's that, 19 degrees, or you want to go a bit lower down, so about 35 degrees south. So you can now find out what the sky is doing down in South America, and that's really good. You can go pretty much anywhere around the world. So let's come back to where we are now by clicking here. We're at 53 degrees north in the UK. Now I'll come on to advanced a bit later, but for now what I'll do is we'll now go through these things here. Now the two that are lit up at the moment is obviously the cardinal points, and we've got the horizon lit up as well. If I turn the horizon off, you can see the whole sky all the way around. You see all the sky. If you turn so I'll turn that back on again. The first one we're going to click here is this one, which joins up the constellations, so you can see the constellation line. So if you were to look slightly to the left, I'll just move it along, you can see Orion there, fairly familiar, I'm sure you're familiar with Orion. So it marks out the whole constellation, you can see the belt, you can zoom in as well. So there you are, there's the Hunter, Orion the Hunter. And there you've got Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, which is part of the Big Dog constellation coming up there. And so that's the constellation lines all marked out there. So I'll just turn that off a minute and then we'll turn this one on. And what this one does is this one just brings up the names of the constellations, so you can see it's got Orion there. If I turn it off, Orion goes away, but fairly self-explanatory. It just names the constellations, that one. So I'll turn that one back up again. This is quite a nice one. If I turn this one on, it shows you the actual graphical depictions of the constellations. So there you are, Orion there. Then we've got the dog following him, the big dog there. He looks to be chasing the bull, which is Taurus here. The old constellation drawings. Now, the next one that I'm going to click is this one here. Now this is the equatorial grid. So depending on your location where you are on the planet, depends on how the angle of these lines here. But this is basically showing you the equatorial sky. These blue lines here, it's marked by these blue lines which go towards the North Pole. Now if I rotate the sky, you can see the way that the stars move through the sky. So they'll rise in the east and they'll set in the west, and this is the way that they will set in the west. You can see Orion there as it goes down in the west, following these lines. Now Orion is actually split in the celestial hemisphere. So if I was to zoom in on Orion, let's zoom in on Orion, you can actually see, you might be able to see that if I fast forward that now, it actually traces a fairly straight line in the sky. That's because Betelgeuse and Bellatrix, these two stars on the top, are in the northern part of the sky, whereas below the belt, Rigel, the bright star at the bottom, and Saiph, the other star that marks the bottom of Orion, are in the southern part of the sky. So they're actually rotating around the southern pole, while these two stars up here are rotating around the north pole, anti-clockwise. So that's quite an interesting fact about Orion. So let's move out of that now. Come back to this again, click off the equatorial grid, and now I'm going to bring up the azimuth grid. Now this is a more basic kind of grid, a more simple to understand grid. It's basically degrees up, straight up, and degrees horizontal. So it's like up, down, left, right. It's a bit probably easier to use this grid to gauge how high constellations are going to be at a certain time, that sort of thing. Right, this one here with the cloud and the sun actually gives you a realistic picture of the sky where you might happen to be, because it actually introduces the atmospheric effects like light pollution and that sort of thing. So you can see there how when I press that there, this is how the sky would look if you were somewhere really, really dark, and you can actually see the Milky Way there going across there. You can just make out the Milky Way there going across the sky. Can you see? It gets a bit brighter down that way there towards the north, because that's where the inner part of the galaxy is. But anyway, clicking on the clouds brings up the atmosphere, so you can really see that, make it look more realistic as to where you are. Now, I'll leave that on because it's more realistic. Now this one here means galaxies. So you can have a look at galaxies and all sorts of things, goodies that are in the sky. You can have a look at the Orion Nebula. This shows you where they are, that sort of thing, the Orion Nebula. So any galaxies that happen to be anywhere, you can find double cluster there, look. Tells you where the double cluster is. So that's what that one does there. This is an interesting one, satellites. So this shows you where all the satellites are in the sky. Iridiums, it'll probably show you Hubble, if Hubble's around anywhere. The ISS, it'll show you the ISS. Look at all these satellites here, look. So look at all these satellites that are flying around, you might be able to see them. So that's what that's for. This one here means that you can basically use the phone, you know, like I'll just try and show you now. So if I move the camera up now, you can see how, if you move it around, see, you can move around the sky like that using that option there. So that's a very handy option as well. So you can basically just move it around freeform. So that's a really good option. Now this one with the eye is really good because it turns the screen red. Now you might happen to be somewhere dark and you might want to use the program to line up a part of the sky so that you could find a particular object that you're looking for, a faint object. And having the red screen means that you won't damage your night vision. So that's a very, very handy feature, that to have the red screen. So we'll just turn that back up again, and now we'll go back into, we're going to go into advanced now, and I'm going to show you a couple of things. You can determine the level of light pollution for where you are. I have it set to mid. You can also determine the Milky Way brightness. I have that set fairly low. Constellation boundaries, I've got that ticked on all right. Now this is interesting, meridian line, show meridian line. The meridian line is your north and south point. So they're south, which is, for me, is that way. So the meridian line is basically your north and south point, you know, that splits the sky into two halves. So everyone's meridian line will be different depending on where they are. But it's a good thing to have on the screen because all the stars reach the highest point in the southern part of the sky. Okay, so I've just gone back in time a little bit to show you something. Now all the stars reach the highest point in the southern part of the sky, and the meridian line is where they will get to the highest point. So if you look at Orion here, you can see that as Orion comes across, I've gone back a couple of months to get this because I had to, you'll see that the belt there gets to its highest point due south, and then it starts to slowly go down then. So that's a useful thing to have on the meridian line. Now another interesting feature is the ecliptic line. This is quite important as well because this shows you the path that the sun takes through the sky, and it's also the path of the zodiac constellations. So if you follow this line through the sky, you will see that it passes through all the zodiac constellations: Gemini, Cancer, Leo there, we've got Leo. So this is the ecliptic Virgo down there. So this is the ecliptic line, which I have on all the time. It basically shows you the angle of the ecliptic at any time in the sky. Now at the moment it's quite steep, and but it's always changing all the time, and it depends where you are as to how steep or how shallow that line is. If you're further south near the equator, the ecliptic line is usually very, very steep. So that's the ecliptic. That's pretty much it really. I think I've gone through pretty much most of the stuff there. That's Stellarium. There you go. Okay, so that's my little overview of Stellarium, which I think is the best astronomy app that you can get. And like I say, it's used by professionals, so there you go. Now remember, you can actually get it on the computer as well. If you want to use it on the computer, it's even got more options than ever on the computer. But I hope I've given you a good insight into the way that it kind of works and the way that I use it as well, using the markers and using the ecliptic line and the meridian line and all that sort of thing. So yeah, so that's Stellarium. On the next video, I'm going to be showing you the next app that I use, mainly for moon rises and sunrises, sunsets, that sort of thing. The photographer's ephemeris on the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the next video.